Up first is Bobby Napiltonia presenting the new go-to-market strategy, How to Get the Money. Bobby is one of the founding partners of the GTM Firm and a grizzled tech-junkie veteran with nearly 4 decades of experience in building and delivering transformative technologies. From making computers that produce sound for games and video to enabling text messages that help you catch an Uber, Bobby has seen it all. Many will recognize the AppExchange he built for Marc Benioff and Salesforce, which has become a foundation for many of today's cloud companies and grown into a trillion-dollar ecosystem. He is an authority on go-to-market strategies and is passionate about cloud computing, APIs, generative AI, robotics, deep tech, open source, and building powerful ecosystems. Please join me in welcoming Bobby to the stage.
Wow. Thank you very much, Shannon. I don't think I need to present after you did all of that. It's kind of embarrassing having hear a little bit about yourself. So everyone have a good time last night? Maybe too much of a good time? I heard like 5 voices maybe say they did. Is it because you don't remember or you don't want to remember? Well, first, thanks for taking the time to have me here. I would like to really thank Brian, the EDCO team, Jen for pulling off this BVC. Last year, I actually snuck into the BVC. I had moved to Oregon from a 30-year sentence that I had in Silicon Valley when my daughter went to school. But I'm not new to Oregon. I actually got married in Hood River 27 years ago. My wife's grandfather was mayor of Bend in the 70s. So in a way, it's kind of like coming home and back. And so I'm super excited to become part of the community, how I can contribute, and really have some meaningful impact in an area and a region that I believe has the opportunity to almost be a Silicon Valley satellite. And I say that for a variety of reasons. First and foremost, I do this for a living, so I'm blessed in the almost 40 years I speak around the world on a variety of topics. The people here are amazing. I've never, ever, ever experienced an embracement. Well, maybe at the University of Tuscaloosa, but I learned schools are different. They'll take anything for free. So that's a little bit different. And the way in which the community embraced. So I reached out to Josh. I said, hey, I'm moving. Great. We threw a poker party with Bob Kremens from Startup Haven. We had about 30 people. So I actually got to feel the vibe. But when I felt that vibe, I have to be honest with you all. What I feel here in the PNW, if we truly want to be like Silicon Valley, because it's PNW-ish in terms of the volume of area, is we're like gangs of New York. We have so many little factions fighting for this little corner, whereas if we could figure out, and my goal was next year, how can I help coalesce this power, this money, this brain trust, this desire to succeed, to have some outcomes, and we call that getting the money. And it's not necessarily about venture raising. And so I skipped school and jumped right into technology, and we'll talk a little bit about that because it's the change that really stays the same. And so I kind of feel like my clicker might not work. If we could advance the next slide, if it's not me. I kind of feel like Forrest Gump. And I say that because how many people have seen the movie? All right, most of you. So then you actually see that there's points in time that he truly touched things. And I was blessed. I entered the industry in distribution, and I had joined a company that had already been around 75 years, and you're thinking, how the hell are they doing computer distribution? Well, what I learned from them is it's about a customer coverage model. And that company I was about a $15-16 million. Today it's an $8 billion, still privately held ESOP. Their children run it. I'm friends with them today. I see them when I go back to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And I think that's a testament to that you can build things to last if you know what you're doing and you trust in the people and you build the necessary cultures to do so. And in the 7 years there, I got to see the beginning of the PC era, which was truly the start of what got us here today. And all of those models and all of those companies and a lot of the roadkill, you could see who did things right, who did things wrong. But I'm going to back up to the distributor and what I really learned. So they were the US's largest Whirlpool and RCA distributor. Now, why is that meaningful? Well, it's the first things we consumed after a house and a car. And so it lets you start understanding the need for dealer networks, how you have those coverage models, how you will service people. And now we advance to today and that's changed, but that's truly allowed. And by the way, that's why Amazon winning. It's a customer coverage because I want to get you products next day. So the change that stays the same just continues to go throughout that period of time. And I was very fortunate that I I was very hesitant too. As a son of a waitress and a truck driver, I was really happy with my job. And I took a flyer joining a startup. And we got lucky. We grew from 30 million to 1.5 billion, and we're the fastest growing company in the world for the first half of the 90s. And we created sound for the PC. And that is where I learned about getting the money and things that people talk about today, like CAC and LTV. So the stories that I'm going to share and show with you are ones that I want you to take, interpret, and say, how do they apply to me? What can I learn? Can I have no false starts? Can I see around corners? And what can I take away and apply to make my business better tomorrow? And in that journey, we realized that I could go ahead and be on every PC by selling a $16 chip, that I ultimately got $3,000 out of more than 50% of the companies, because what we did was invest in the ecosystem of developers to create games that made you want more products, to have better sound, and I'd had you on this upgrade train forever. It was an incredible experience and journey. And then I joined the internet. And when we got to that phase, it was the Wild West because we had never seen anything like this before. Pipes weren't fat enough. There were no models to monetize it. And it was kind of a disaster, to be honest. Not many companies med, but what I did learn in that it was a communities company, because the first thing we did was get online. We wanted to share, talk, show. This was visual, avatar-based, early Skype capabilities called OnLive. And we ended up selling the company to one of our investors who wanted it for the communication layer. And then I did my first startup at a ripe young age of about 29, thinking this is easy. I've seen it all. How can it go? And so we started a company with one of the founders that was at the previous company. And then 2001 hit. And who was around for 2001? All right, so a lot of you. It's a disaster. It was maybe the worst shit show that we'd ever seen in the technology era. And we had launched our product at a conference like this called the Demo Conference with Stuart Alsup, and I was beyond excited. My company was State Software because we made the web stateful, and the gentleman next to me, because it was alphabetically lined up, was a dude named Marc Benioff, because it was Salesforce, S-A-S-T, you guys can spell alphabetically. And that became a relationship that we left from there. But when we launched our company, I was excited because we had 6 customers using us in beta. We didn't even have revenue, and we modest revenue. And one was Amazon for drag and drop into the shopping cart, because people were abandoning shopping carts. We were truly trying to solve problems that would get the money. How do I make sure you complete the transaction? And all of those things. And it turned out that we had to open source that technology because we shut the company down. And I'm proud to say today that's called JSON, JavaScript Object Notation. How many people here have heard of that? All right, about a lot of you. So I'm pleased that I learned a lot about open source then, and the power of the community and the ecosystems that can drive what we need to happen tomorrow. And so after that, I bumped around to a variety of things because I learned things like ubiquity. How can we look to have as much as possible? So I spent a stint in things that I believe are important to all of us, like electricity and the smart grid, and we all know what they are today. We heard Mark speak yesterday. Like, if we think we have electrical problems today, which we do, it's only going to exacerbate itself as we roll out these AI data centers, because it's been decades since we even built a data center. And I share with people, I'm more concerned really about the wastewater runoff from these centers than the power consumption, because these local communities don't have wastewater treatment for any of the things that they're prepared for. So everything that we show will have an impact on the entire society that we drive with this. But the good news is we ended up figuring out that we could control signals and that we could actually flatten the curve, and all of a sudden you wouldn't need to build power plants. And across America, we shut down 19 coal plants by rolling out our software to utilities that could actually send signals to devices, like in Houston, to turn your pool pump off for 2 hours, which got me into the IoT business, to think you could send signals to a device instead of a human to get the money. And that's when I realized the utility business is a great one. Well, people run away from it. They're very nice to deal business. And why is that? They're very risk adverse, but if you become their friend, you're their friend for life, and they will do business with you forever, because it's an endless get the money bank account. The PUC will just flush them with cash if you can start showing things. And so we discovered that so many things, once you get electrical signal, what's going to fail, where things are going to go bad, how you could sell that data. And now I got to truly see the power of data was so much more than a credit report or what you were going to do with it. And we'd sold that company to Siemens after being a global standard in 17 countries. And we did that by just focusing on one customer, and I hear this all the time. I'm very focused. You'll hear me talk about if you don't sell vanilla ice cream, stop talking to me. I don't want to hear as a startup vanilla chocolate strawberry. Like, stop it. The people can't hear it, consume it. And so we had a product, and then we ended up having the platform. And we realized that a truck roll in Texas, because with every move in and move out, that you had to send someone. Well, that cost $293. Well, we could actually know what the meter read was. I could verify it. And all of a sudden, we worked with the PUC to come up with a variable standard of 0.25 in billing. Because the only way a utility gets fined is not by blowing up San Bruno like PG&E and burning down towns, but by misbilling you as a consumer. Imagine that. And so what we did was ensure that. And with that little standard, you'll hear me talk a lot about becoming standards, because once you do that, you sort of get to bully the others around and control them and take them to your corners. And that allowed us to go back to the PUC and show that we could do this. And the next thing you know, we got $23 million. The next thing you know, we just started dropping apps on this platform. And so it almost became like a money-making machine. And a lot of that I took from my days at Salesforce, where we were able to build the AppExchange. And that was probably one of the more difficult ones, because we had a bunch of small competitors. Microsoft, Oracle, SAP, the world. Nobody wanted to stop installing servers and software. And so the change paradigm was really, really difficult. And had I not had a diversion after my failed startup at a company called BEA, who I thought was going to buy us, I would have never learned about real business, because I hadn't had a job at this point. And so I get dropped into an enterprise company. And for the first 6 months, I'm walking the halls to find my job, which I thought was really weird. And by the time I left, I ran everything from our joint venture with Intel to all the ISVs. And I'm going to tell the ISVs, everyone knows what an independent software vendor, this is when you actually have to make stuff. And what we realized was that to get the money from them, I had to have a new model. And so I believe pricing is a moat, and it's a model that we can all take advantage of. And we were losing business to open source badly, although we had the best product. So we came up with P&R. How can I become a % of your net revenue and make it worthwhile? So really quickly, we're going to jump into some of the specific stories that we're going around, but I'm going to call out on someone here, because when I get the money, I told a little bit about the PC era, a little bit about the internet, a little bit about the connectivity. Is Peter Horn here? So he's going to be part of my Throwback Thursday every week. I have a partner who does a look back. He interviews everyone from Mark Cuban to Peter Horan to, I did one on Ann Winblad last year. And the whole goal is to share the stories, because it's the change that stays the same. It's all about getting the money and how you'll get there. And Peter tells a story of how his back was against the wall, and he realized he went and talked to someone, and it was Intel. It was their developer relations group. And he asked them, if you don't do this, what will happen? Oh, it's Armageddon. We're all going to die. And he said, if I align to what your goals are, can we do business? And the person said yes. And so the big thing I profess is understanding what the person on the other side of the table is doing with you, so you can truly get there. All right, we're about running out of time. So in the quick 15 minutes, we'll have probably a subset. Hit me up on LinkedIn. I'd love to have a more open environment and engagement with all of you, so that we can talk about helping you get the money in ways that you haven't thought about, because I call it coupon clipping. We've had projects with one of my startups, which is a female founder. It's been a 10-year run. We're electrifying the school bus system, and we're doing $100 to $150 million 10-year deals. And it started with transportation for parents that worked. And so you can get the money by doing it. On that note, Shannon, come on, let's take some questions and see
How
how
about a round of
interactive we can
applause for
make this
Bobby?
morning.
I think we could listen to you talk for an entire day. If you have questions, you're going to scan the QR code, type them in, and then we'll get through as many as we can in about 10 minutes. Bobby, what's the most favorite project you've ever worked on?
That's a great question. I would say the hardest became the favorite, and that was going to Twilio. They had struggled for 2 years to get past $5 million. And it was text messaging. And I'd come from BA. We'd powered 9 out of 10 telcos, so I knew the telco infrastructure space. It was really hard, heavy. And we ended up, how many people get text for getting a date, to getting a ride, to getting a package delivered? We set the standard on how text message was the new engagement platform, and now you all get them. And we went from 5 million to 178 million by the penny in 18 months. That's called getting the money. And I can talk to you. Yeah, talk about getting the money. And then that allowed us to truly go from 178 to $1 billion, which is one of the other fastest growing companies that I participated in that decade.
The evolution of texting is just so fun. I mean, I remember you like trying to get to an O, like MMNO. So much easier now.
Now you just speak, you don't even need to text.
You didn't even you could think about it. Where do you see your future with all the development of AI and how it's affecting the internet?
That's a great question. So I was there for no software. One of the companies I'm engaged with, I'm going to be there for no applications. All Salesforce was white collar worker, do your job. Right? I worked at UPS as a kid, and I realized we had SOPs, and that's all that really is. Guess what? I don't need to ask the machine, please update that record, that account. Did they do that? Because it's going to do it already. For those of you who use BDRs, depending on who you're selling to, a lot of the things, they're all broken. Yesterday's model, SaaS is dead, I'll tell you that right now. It's a delivery model. It's not a pricing mechanism. We're moving to a consumption-based world where you buy the car and you pay for the gas type things. We're seeing that already, and a big reference for that is 3 of Salesforce's top deals came from AWS Marketplace last quarter. Okay, that's insane. So that tells me we go back to what is AWS doing? The same things, and I see Todd there, same things Sun Microsystems did, which was wallet share, market share. Look at what all I got. What do you want? Because in today's world, your CFO is your ICP. He's got $10. She's got $10. You're not all getting part of that 10. So you've got to figure out how you can be part of something or get drugged to that party on yourself or solve a big problem. Is it harder
to raise VC from traditional Valley-focused firms, given that we're in Central Oregon?
That's a great question. No, I don't believe so if you've got the right product. I would love to build the bridge to Silicon Valley, which is part of why I'm here. I'm doing the same thing where my daughter's going to school at the University of Alabama in Tuscaloosa. We just got our first company funded this fall, and I'm excited about that because I can bring the credibility of Silicon Valley and say, this is what we're doing here. And by the way, let me tell you, do you know how many Silicon Valley people have places here?
A lot.
Part of my job is to coalesce and tap into them. I was telling Brian this morning, like my colleague and friend over at KKR, who runs all their software, has a place in Tumalo. So I'm going, okay, we just have to figure out how we can grasp and embrace them because they want this region to thrive.
Yes, we need a giant air purifier for the center of town. Okay, is there a book that changed your perspective on business that you wish you had read sooner in your career?
That's a great question. I'm an audio listener, not a good reader. These days, eyesight probably, attention span. I'm really a big fan of, who's a big Reed Hastings fan? Netflix, we'll go there. All right, there's a couple special parts why I'm sharing that one. No Rules Rules. Has anyone read that book? Raise your hand. If not, you need to get it. It will tell you everything you need to know that you didn't know because the rules you learned are all wrong. And that's why Netflix won. They had a no rules policy. They pushed out the dissemination of decision making that the person in Indonesia got a $10 million budget. Good luck, Chuck. What did that mean? You find the content, you make the money, and if you don't, you get fired. So what did that person do? They created the best content for Indonesia. And guess what? They won. They changed how we all consume video today. They changed how actors and actresses actually participate and can have a life forever. They decimated a small company who charged us all for late fees. Blockbuster. Yeah, it's still one's right here in Oregon. I drive by it and take pictures and send it to my friends all the time.
Is it a coincidence the last one is here? I think not. Okay, I appreciate your idea of bringing the small players in the entrepreneurial ecosystem together. What's your first step and how can we help?
Yes, I'd like to know who the question's from. Come please see me. I don't have an answer. This is my biggest struggle. You know, the Gangs of New York reference is real. I'm not sure why we're this way. And in talking to some folks, it's because, you know, maybe we got this big brother in Seattle that shines down on us, that then Portland wants to be the second child, and then we become the stepchild. I don't have an idea or an answer other than it's fucked up. Like it really, really, really is. And we will never, ever succeed unless we figure this out. I'm going to guarantee you that. Yes, we'll have a one-hit wonder. Mark and I are going to go build an incredible company at World Stage. That I do agree with because it's people like him that we have coming to this area that they're not going anywhere else in the world. So we're very fortunate. We've got to figure out how we're going to coalesce and bring this to make it. So please come find me or hit me up.
When there are 15 different ways to do something and the solution is make a standard, we end up with 16 ways to do something. How do you shift existing workflows toward new standard?
All right, this is a good question. There's a lot to decipher there. So 15 different ways. Let's go to the sensor company I told you about. I had two choices. We had just sold the smart grid company, and this is rare, but the husband and wife were VCs, one at Kleiner Perkins and one at Foundation. And so I met with them both, and I was in electricity. I already told you this. And so they said, here's one for consumers, and here's one for commercial. And I'd spent a lot of time in consumer. I go, no one's spending $350 on a thermostat. Who knows the name of that company? Yeah, Nest. So I took Enlighted because I'm thinking enterprises. I have already seen how much you spend, how much you waste. If I can save you money, I underestimated what it would take to get a sensor in a ceiling. Now, what we did, we got the money. I found out that my first customer is going to fire us. That was called Google. Got there with Nagin. He tells me, I go, hey, you got OKRs. They're hers now. Really? Yeah, I can control that. He saw we were aligned. They became a reference customer, wrote a book on the smart building if you don't have this. I then went and got the buildings, City Towers in New York, the Aon Tower in Chicago, the Salesforce Tower, so I could tell you I got the biggest ones that you can see. Does it work? You don't have to ask me. Look at those buildings. I then realized I couldn't train enough people and didn't have time. And we were having problems because the electricians were installing these sensors on the light in the buildings they were building and just messing it up. So I went to the Electrical Union Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, and I convinced them that they make money on dues. An electrician gets $14 an hour for AC/DC, but you go up to data cabling, you get $22 an hour. They took 280 training centers and started training thousands, tens of thousands of engineers how to put my sensors everywhere. Now, I had a few things that fell in line with us. Title 22 for daylight harvesting was rolled out, so you had to roll the sensors. But what we did with that Salesforce model, I gave you the $16 sensor so that I could get the data and then sell it to everyone. Because there's three things that are, biggest thing on a balance sheet, your property. If you don't know what's going on in that, what could you do? But we created the standard. We created an IoT alliance. It's a Verizon that took 18 months. Cisco, the other big companies came in on it. What I wanted was a 1/4-inch knockout. Why? Intel inside. I went out to the lighting manufacturers. I gave them 40 points of margin. Why? Selling a $16 sensor. It's easy to add $5 to that. Next thing you know, I had sensors in 17,000 fixtures across 25, 30 manufacturers. It was an Intel inside. It was a PC era. The change that stays the same. Rolled out 1 billion square feet in under 2 years, unheard of. That was for new construction. The other half of our business was get the money coupon clipping. Why? I learned that those utilities want you to swap out from fluorescent to LED because of the cost savings, and they paid for all the labor. I was making money to make money to save them money. Like I'd never seen anything like that in my life. Last question, because I think we're running out of time.
Yeah. How do you suggest to balance the competitive culture of getting the money with sustainable business practices? Woof.
So getting the money doesn't necessarily mean do underhanded things, right? All of those that I shared and showed with you had a lot of thought through, articulated execution, and sequencing is the most important part. It's culture. It's hard to build culture today. I'm concerned, we've got lazy kids, let's be honest. The phones distracted them, let's be honest. Social isolation they went through, COVID fucked them up. I'm really concerned about tomorrow's workforce, not just for working. Think about the venture community. They're not doing deals. Imagine if the teams playing baseball last night never got any at-bats and all of a sudden they're in the playoffs. They're whiffing every time. So we're really in for a world of hurt. I think the seed, pre-seed, in these early stage, we have the opportunity to truly make a difference. The balance is just do things right. The only currency we have, by the way, is trust. Most of the I always tell people, I'll open my phone, call anyone. They love doing business. Why? Unfortunately, I have a point of view, and you're going to hear it whether you like it or not. And I earned that point of view.
That's right. Well, how about a round of applause for Bobby Napiltonia?
Thank you, everyone.